Happy Election Day. We're here at Trump Tower Live with Donald Trump Jr. Joining me is Cliff Sims. I'm Boris Epstein. Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Here we are, Election Day. We've already had some great TV hits this morning. How are you feeling today?
Listen, it feels good. I mean, it's been an amazing 18 months. It's been such a incredible learning experience to be able to just be out there in America, seeing people who've been so affected by politics and, the false promises that have been made for generations, and to see that look of hope in those people's eyes. It's changed me a lot. I know it's changed my father. You always imagine it, you think about it, but when you see it face to face, it's so special. And it's been an amazing process.
It's always interesting to see what happens I can just point back to like teams that I've been on in the past where we went through, fight together, so to speak, and then you come to the end of the year and you didn't even realize it, but you really came together as a part of that. Yeah. For you guys' family and gotten to spend a little bit of time with you guys, it seems like that's kind of what's happened with y'all. It's brought y'all closer through this difficult time.
Very much so. I mean, we've always been very close as a family. That's the way we were brought up. That's the way we were raised. Frankly, in a lot of this process, we've sort of just split up, divide and conquer, right? Because when my father's in a place, in one place, it sort of creates a vacuum, as we've all seen, right? So there's almost no reason to be with him, but, we've gone out of our way to make the states that I got to visit then, and going back now, months later, it's been awesome.
I'm sure the voters are curious, the viewers are curious. What's your day like today? Right? From what have you experienced so far? What are you expecting throughout the day?
Well, I got about 2 hours of sleep, and then I had to do a bunch of TV in the morning. It was nice because it wasn't nearly as hostile as it's been in the past. I think people are like, okay, we can actually have some civil discourse, which is a lot of what this is about. But to me now, it's about thanking the people that have been so good to us along the way, the people that have reached out, the people who've come to the rallies in support of, whether it be my father, whether it be myself, my siblings. So a lot of stuff like this, a lot of direct outreach to them, just watching social, thanking those people who are sending pictures. And that's what it is. It's about, let's get everyone out to vote. Let's let that voice be heard. And I feel so much of America, what I hear from them is that they haven't felt like they've had a voice in a very long time. And maybe we're the vessel to give them that voice again. And so that's been exciting. So, I hope they go out and express their opinions in the voting booth, and we can maybe send that shot across the bow of D.C., almost irrespective of outcome.
Right.
That these politicians on both sides, because I don't even want to go partisan now, but both sides, Republican and Democrat, have failed us as their constituency. They've done what's good for them and their buddies and their cronies and their special interests, and the American people have been left in the dust. And so hopefully this is that wake-up call that those people in D.C. have to start listening to their people.
Listen to Don. Go out and vote. Vote, vote, vote. Bring your friends.
That's right. You mentioned the folks who have felt like they haven't had a voice in the process for so long. I look at my home state in Alabama, obviously not a swing state, but we're a state of a little over 4 million people, and we registered 500,000 new voters. Yeah. It's remarkable. Today, as we look at turnout across the country, and we're looking at all these polls, and it's hard to know what to think, I think that's something people maybe aren't paying enough attention to, is all these new people. You're not polling those folks. Is that something maybe we should be looking at today?
I think without question. I mean, at first when I saw it on the campaign trail over the last few months, I was like, that's an anomaly. New voter from 25, I told you the story, from 25 to 83. Mm-hmm. I had a voter yesterday at one of my events in, where was I? I guess Iowa at the time. 99 years old.
99.
Still into it. But so 25 to 83 who've never voted. That's not getting picked up in a poll model. That's not getting picked up in some of these statistics that I'm seeing out there. And, someone will probably get it right. But I've seen millions of different ways to do it. But when you hear it once, you hear it twice, you say it's an anomaly. When you hear it day in and day out saying, hey, I'm either a lifetime Democrat or I've never voted in my life, but I've been involved and watching for 30, 40 years, you say, man, that's something new. And I don't think anyone can account for that.
And when they do the polling, they only incorporate those who voted before. So to your point, those are not included in those numbers. If you had to focus on one issue, looking back on the last, 15, 16 months that you've been out there, what's the one issue that you think has really rang through to the voters the most, that you've gotten the most feedback on?
I think it's two: jobs and safety. It all flows from there. We want to bring up our kids in a safe environment, but we also need the financial stability. Our politicians have made it so difficult for Americans to start businesses. Okay, the excessive regulation, a bureaucrat in a D.C. office, beautifully air conditioned in the Beltway, telling a guy who wants to start up a machine shop, how he should run his business. It doesn't work. It's not real. It's not genuine. So when they don't understand these businesses yet, they keep imposing more regulations. And there's never an elimination of regulation. It's only more, more. They never get rid of the other stuff that's obsolete. So many of those things are conflicting. So, if we could put Americans back to work, I've said it over the last few days, we've outsourced the American dream, to other countries. They're living your American dream. And it's not because we want to do that. It's because we've made it impossible to do it here. You can't do it. You can't find the people that would do that kind of stuff here. And that shouldn't be the case. But we have to create a regulatory environment. We have to create a tax environment that allows that money to stay here, so we can put our people to work, so they can have decent wages, so they can have a family structure that's not crumbling because of the stress of being, living paycheck to paycheck. That's so much of what I see. I mean, throughout this process, I've had grown men and women coming up to me in tears. And that's as moving as it gets. I mean, it's hard not to get emotional at the time, just because they've seen that. They've seen false promise after false promise, and they've watched that American dream of theirs slip away. And go elsewhere. And so, I think it all starts there. And if we can do that, I think that'd be amazing.
We're in the kind of fog of war today on Election Day. It's really difficult to tell what's really going on out there. We're consuming all this data, watching all these news reports and all that. Is there a state or two that you were watching today that maybe is kind of a bellwether for the country that you say, hey, if that state goes this way or that way, we kind of know where we're heading?
Listen, I think there's always the traditional bellwethers. But again, I think this is such a different election. There are no norms. There's too many new voters. There's too much. There isn't a bellwether. I mean, you got Ohio, right? I mean, typical bellwether. You have states that aren't supposed to be bellwethers that are moving in the right direction for us. Michigan, I was there all day yesterday. The other side sending all of their people into the state, so it means they're panicking. They're worried about losing, what would be a very blue state. So I think there's just a lot of stuff going on. I think I see that in so many of the Bernie states. The states that Bernie won, ultimately in the end, he was cheated, in the process. We've seen that, right? I mean, that was disgusting, but, people see it. He won in Michigan. He won in some of these. And all of a sudden, we're doing pretty well there because it's a disaffected voter, someone who's been let down by the system. Again, bipartisan message. You've been let down. I don't care if you're a liberal, if you're a conservative, you've been let down. And I think those people are looking for actual change, real change, not the change we hear about where nothing actually ends up happening.
And New Hampshire's in one of those states, right?
Yeah.
So that rally last night was a representation of that. You see the crowds. So the other side has to bring in Beyonce, Jay-Z.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah,
hey,
Bruce.
I could sell out a stadium if those people were opening for me. What am I?
Well, you're getting more crowds than Tim Kaine or in some instances Hillary Clinton do on their own.
Although there's been that's been awesome for me. I mean, it's so great to speak to larger crowds because you feed off of their energy and they go. And so, there were a couple places. I did a few in New Mexico the other day. 2 events in small town in northern New Mexico, and they were hoping to get 150 people there. And I get there, one is a crowd of 753. They were like, we've never seen anything like this. Then the next one was going to be like 300 people, and 1,750 people showed up for me. It was awesome because you just see that, and you see that desperation. They just want change. I mean, and some of those areas. I mean, one was on a Navajo reservation. I mean, that's not a conservative voting bloc. But again, they're sick of politicians coming to them every 4 years, asking them for their vote, and then we'll say, hey, the first thing we're going to do is see you again in 4 years.
Right. Asking for some more money.
That's what's happened time and time again. And so, it'll be interesting. But that's why I don't know that any of these models work, because there's too much of that. I hear it too many times, lifelong Democrat voting for you guys.
The number that jumps out at me, I think, a lot of times this happened in Brexit, happened in Colombia with a FARC vote. When you ask between 2 options, people may lie about what option, but the change number to me is what always jumps out. 76% of Americans want change.
Yeah.
So in a change election like this one, how could they possibly go for the status quo? And that's all Hillary Clinton is.
Yeah. Well, and beyond that, I think because the narrative, because the way the media has framed so much of this argument, a friend of mine was in a conference the other day, and they were asking people, so who are you voting for? Raise your hand if you're voting for Trump. Mm-hmm. Okay, so small amount of people raise their hands. They asked the next question, which I thought was the most interesting. Raise your hand if you think your neighbor is voting for Trump. And all of a sudden, about 85% of the group raised their hand. Yeah. There was that narrative that it's boxed you in a hole. You don't want to be the guy supporting Trump, but when you get in that booth, you may do it anyway.
Pull the lever.
I joke. There's wives that haven't told their husbands they're voting for Trump, and husbands that haven't told their wives.
And they both will.
And they both will. And and again, I hear that because I see the people that come up to me that are just all in, and they're just, I love you. You guys are the best. And I also see the people that are like, we love you guys. Keep doing it. They won't say it loud. They don't want. They're looking around to make sure that no one's watching.
We love them both.
We'll take them all. But that's because there has been a false narrative created. So hopefully we can change some of that. Because in the end, you got to be president for all Americans. You can't just look to one group and do that. It'd be nice to be able to help everyone.
That's a great point. I think the last couple of days have really, to me, summed up the entire campaign. This barnstorming across the country, like 10 stops in 2 days. Energy through the roof at every single one of them. But I've seen Mr. Trump really make it a point to say in those rallies, I'm ready to be the president for all Americans.
100%.
As you just said. And is that maybe the biggest challenge that we're going to have coming out of the election, is Mr. Trump being that leader that's going to bring the country back together after this election?
No, I don't think that's the biggest challenge, because I've seen him time and time again do it. I've heard a lot of talk from a lot of politicians over the decades. I haven't seen a lot of action. I have seen my father. When he says something, he does it. As I said in my RNC speech, impossible is the starting point. When someone tells him it can't be done, that's his call to action. That's his challenge. And so, I think he'll do that. I think he's done that in this thing. I mean, he's going to places that Republicans wouldn't waste their time. Minnesota, Michigan. They wouldn't spend the time. But in the end, you got to fight for everyone. Fight for each one of those votes and spend the time there. And I think it's been awesome to see him do that, because, again, how many Republican candidates in the last, in our recent memory have we seen going into the inner cities to talk, even if it's unpopular? I mean, look, my father went to go meet with the president of Mexico despite a controversial, because he has the guts to go have that conversation, not just stick his head in the sand and pretend that things don't happen, but it's that same tenacity, it's that same guts that's going to allow him to take on the challenges that so many politicians run from, because they're worried about, again, the PC narrative or whatever it may be. The political winds, every 2 seconds they change, and no one has any conviction anymore. So I think it's nice to see that, and I think the American people have seen that.
So as we wrap up and we tell people to go vote, from my perspective, Cliff's perspective, this campaign's perspective, we want to thank you personally, your whole family. You all have been such an inspiration. I've had the pleasure and honor of knowing you guys for a while, and even before this run started, the dedication, the commitment to this country, commitment to creating jobs, but since this run, the inspiration that you personally, your whole family, and of course your dad, have given to us as this campaign, but to all America, has been really unbelievable. So we're very thankful.
Well, like I said, it's for me, it's been an honor to be able to do it. It's been amazing, and I'm just happy to be a small part of the process. Happy to be in the fight with the American people, because I mean that's what it is. We've said it. It's not a campaign; it's a movement. So I'm just another small part of that movement along with them, and it's been great to be in a foxhole with them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Trump Tower Live, Donald Trump Jr. Go vote.